Hi everyone! I was going to get camera guy and make a video about all the cool things I made from sticks this weekend, but he's busy editing, so I thought, I can do this. I'm going to get out there and do it myself. So here we go. I confess, I'm a stick hoarder. I just can't stop saving sticks. Most of the time, they're from tree branches that we've trimmed. Now, the other day I decided I need to do something with these sticks. So I created 3 free or cheap easy trellises out of my sticks. And I'm really proud of how they turned out. They're sturdy, they're really easy. You can make them too if you have a stick stash. I'm going to share them with you today. If you're enjoying this, like this video and leave a comment. It helps you keep seeing our videos in your feed. And of course, subscribe and turn notifications on so we can keep on growing together. The first trellis I made from my stick stash is the stick Oblique Trellis. Now, I got this idea from these trellises that I purchased, and I thought, why should I purchase more? Why not just make them myself out of my sticks? So what I did here is I cut 6 of my sticks to about 6 feet tall. And you can see these kind of curve at the top, so no big deal if they're not exactly straight. And then I stuck 4 of them in the ground here. And what I did is then I trimmed off from my tree branches 3 more thinner, flexible stakes. And these are best if they're from smaller, newer branches, kind of in the shape of like a teepee at the top. And what I did at the top was I tied them together with a cable tie first to make sure they were nice and secure. You could also use a piece of wire for this. Just wrapped it around a couple of times and then wrapped a nice thick sturdy piece of twine around that to give it a really nice rustic look. And then the next step was I wrapped around some of the more flexible tree branches in 3 different levels all the way up to the top, secured it at the base with a cable tie, wrap some twine around it to hide the cable tie, and boom, I've got a 6-foot trellis that's nice and sturdy. Now, I planted some zinnias underneath here. It's going to be my new pollinator garden. But this oblique trellis is also sturdy enough for cucumbers, for tomatoes, even for some climbing squash. And I just love the rustic look it gives to this raised bed. Little side note here on the oblique trellis. The more imperfect the branches look, the cuter and more rustic it looks. So don't be concerned if they're not exactly perfect, or I really love this curved shape at the top. I think it kind of gives it some personality. Next up on my stick stash, I used to make a flower fence. Now for years along our fence here, I've had one of those old metal kind of wire fences that you get at the garden center. Really not that pretty. It was getting all bent and out of shape. And I knew I wanted to make something sturdier to hold up my sunflowers and zinnias that I planted behind it. So back to my stick stash I went. I found some of the straightest sticks I could find in my stick stash. I cut them in about 4-foot lengths. And then I had a roll of this 3-foot galvanized fencing laying around. Or if you don't have any, you could grab some at the garden center or on Amazon. And what I did is I drove the 4-foot sticks into the ground pretty deeply so it's nice and sturdy, about 2 feet across. And then I wrapped the wire fencing around the first stick, tied it with cable ties all up and down, and then did the same with all the sticks up the hill. Now, the last stick at the top, I actually decided to leave a little bit longer because I planted some sunflowers up there, and that way it serves as a dual purpose, as a trellis and as kind of the anchor or the starting point from my fence. So I'm really happy with this one. In fact, I'm so happy, I'm going to go ahead and extend it all the way down along the fence, all the way to the bottom to help hold up my taller zinnias and pollinators that I'll be planting along here. Now this fence would also be good for kind of smaller, medium height vegetables like beans. It would support those really well. Or if you have some greens, kale or herbs that you want to plant behind this fence, be a good one if you want to keep the bunnies out. You could put it all the way to the ground, or even lay a roll of this fencing on the ground first before you plant. And it really just feels good to reuse what I already have. So see what you have lying around your garden that you could put with your sticks to create something useful for your vegetables to climb on. The next one was actually the first one I built, and I think it's one of my favorites. It's called the Tiny Twine Teepee. So let me show you what this one is. It's a fun one. Have you ever been on the ride at Disneyland called Storybook Land? Well, for some reason, this Tiny Twine Teepee kind of reminds me of that. It's like a mini A-frame trellis. And I built it in the chill zone raised bed because I wanted it to be low enough not to shade the watermelon along the back, but I wanted it to be high enough to provide some height for my little mini cucumbers that are just now poking through. So this is basically 6 sticks cut to about 2 foot tall. And then what I did is I took some of that thick garden twine. If you guys have never used that garden twine, I keep it all the time around the garden. It's just so pretty. It has so many uses. And I basically attached it to make a little ladder up this A-frame, and then wound it around the top to give it a really nice kind of organic, fun look. Now, after I finished building the trellis, I realized, uh-oh, it's kind of crooked at the top. That to me just adds to the charm of it. So I just left it, and I absolutely love the look of it. So you want to plant more compact vegetables on this trellis. It's not a big one for tomatoes or huge vining squash or even big old cucumbers. So I planted a little mini cucumber called Arkansas Little Leaf. It would also work really well to support like peas. They could kind of climb up over the top and then over the top of the other side to support them. I mean, you could really plant anything small and compact under here. And what I did is this trellis is actually doing double duty. I planted some lettuce underneath because as the cucumbers grow, it will shade the lettuce a little bit, which will really be helpful to continue growing lettuce as the temperature gets a little bit warmer. You can literally build this trellis in about 5 minutes with supplies that you already have on hand. That's the beauty of it. If you don't have a stick stash, you definitely need to start one. I think every gardener needs one. All of the trellises I made today came from branches that I save when we trim these trees. I just pick out the sturdiest branches, strip out the leaves, and then stick them in a corner for where I might need them. So definitely always save those, and also save your old sunflower stalks. After they've died, cut them down and then pop them in the corner, and you'll have your own stick stash before you know it. True confessions though, if you do have a stick stash, let me know, and also let me know which one of these trellises you're going to be making. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.